There's a power that lies in silence, a power most people never tap into because most people are busy proving something. They talk too much. They explain too much. They argue too much. They're too busy being seen and not busy enough becoming. You don't grow when your energy is scattered in every direction. You grow when your energy is directed inward in your mind. Your body, your soul, your mission, focusing on yourself is not selfish. It's survival. It's self-respect. It's the only way to transform. Let the world talk. Let them assume. Let them misunderstand you. You don't need to answer the noise. You don't need to correct every opinion. Most of what people say about you says more about them than it ever will about you. Silence is your edge. When you stay quiet, people guess your next move. When you stay quiet, they underestimate your strength. And when you stay quiet, you stop leaking energy on things that don't matter. Energy is life. Don't waste it explaining yourself to people who aren't even listening. You gossip, you grind. While they scroll, you study. While they party, you plan. That's how separation happens. That's how you go from ordinary to exceptional. Most people can't sit in silence. It makes them uncomfortable. It forces them to face themselves. But when you learn to sit in silence, you start to hear the voice inside you, the one that's been drowned out by the world for years. That voice has the answers. That voice is your compass. That voice knows exactly who you are and what you're capable of. Every time you choose to focus inward, you sharpen your edge. You become more intentional, more precise, more dangerous in the best possible way. There's a power that lies in silence. Most people never tap into because they've been conditioned to believe that loud means being strong. That being seen means being successful. And that speaking up constantly means they matter. But real power doesn't come from noise. It comes from depth. It comes from focus. It comes from aligning your energy with your purpose so clearly that you don't need external validation. You don't need to convince anyone of anything because you're building something within yourself that can't be explained, only shown. Focusing on yourself is the discipline of winners. It's the mindset of people who understand that success starts within. Not with approval, not with likes, not with applause, but with quiet mastery behind closed doors. It's about choosing you. Not because you hate the world, but because you finally realize that everything you're chasing outside is already inside, waiting to be activated. Most people are addicted to attention. Pain, they can't sit still. They can't go an hour without showing someone what they're doing, where they're going, wearing what they're thinking. But here's the truth. Constant exposure weakens your progress. When you tell everyone what you're working on, you invite distractions, doubts, and unsolicited opinions that dilute your drive. Every time you speak on your vision prematurely, you're leaking energy that could have been invested in execution. Focus means saying no to that. Focus building quietly, training privately, transforming silently. And when the time is right, results will speak louder than any announcement ever could. Staying silent isn't about being passive. It's about being intentional. It's about knowing when to speak and when to observe. It's about keeping your energy protected from people who don't understand your frequency. Not everyone deserves access to your mind. Not everyone should know your next step. Not everyone should be invited into the sacred space of your evolution. Silence is how you preserve your edge. It's how you keep your standards high. It's how you avoid becoming reactive and stay grounded in strategy and self-control. In a world where everyone's watching everyone else, focus becomes your rebellion. When you stop competing with others, you start discover who you stop rushing. You stop comparing. You begin to realize that your timing is yours and nobody can delay what's meant for you when you're aligned and committed. That kind of confidence doesn't need noise. It doesn't need to prove anything. It just moves. With clarity, with conviction, with calm. The most powerful people don't speak much. They don't have to, gonna have pain. Their presence is enough. Their consistencies is loud. Their habits do the talking because they understand that true growth internal. The mind you build in private becomes the life you live in public. That's why you focus. That's why you stay disciplined. That's why you sacrifice the need to be seen today to become unavailable tomorrow. Anyone talk? Most people do. But very few people are willing to do the work in silence. Very few are willing to disappear so they can reemerge as someone new. It takes humility to go ghost. It takes maturity to go to being understood in favor of being transformed. When you focus on yourself, your standard change. You stop entertaining nonsense. You stop allowing low energy conversations. You stop over-explaining your worth. Your life becomes cleaner, simpler. And that clarity makes space for elevation because you're no longer reacting to the world. You're designing your own. You don't have to be everywhere. You don't have to be everything to everyone. You just need to be deeply rooted in who you are and fiercely committed to what you're becoming. That requires boundaries. That requires silence. That requires the discipline to let others talk while you build. It's in the silence that ideas sharpen, that confidence grows, that peace expands. It's in the silence that become addicted to your own presence, not because it's easy, but because it's powerful. When you stop needing to be noticed, you start noticing yourself. You start discovering parts of you that were buried under noise, opinions, fear, and distraction. And as you dig deeper into your own world, the outside world starts to matter less. Not because you don't care, but because you've realized that none of it makes sense unless you're whole, unless you're aligned, unless you've taken the time to do the quiet, difficult, powerful work of becoming who you're meant to be. That's why you focus. That's why you stay silent, because transformation doesn't need a witness. It just needs your commitment. While they talk, you build. While they post, you practice. While they seek approval, you seek progress. That's the edge silence gives you. The more you stay in your own lane, the more you realize how much time and energy you've wasting other people lives. The comparison, the judgment, the distraction. All of it fades when you commit to your own growth. Focusing on yourself doesn't mean you isolate. It means you realign. It means you stop pouring into people who never filled you. It means you stop trying to fix what's broken outside before fixing what's broken inside. Growth is an inward journey, not a public performance. You don't owe the world your progress report. You owe yourself your full attention. Staying silent is not weakness. It's strength, real strength. The kind that doesn't shout. The kind that doesn't flex for likes. The kind that doesn't need to interrupt every moment with commentary. It's the strength of being still in chaos, the strength knowing who you are so clearly that you don't flinch when someone questions you. In silence, you learn to hold your vision tight. You protect it. You feed it. You water it. And when the world tries to distract you, you stay rooted because you know why you started. You know where you're headed, and you've learned that elevation requires isolation. Not forever, but long enough to level up without interest. The truth is, nobody really knows what you're going through. They don't see the sacrifices, the late nights, the self-doubt, the discipline. And they don't have to. You're not doing this for applause. You're doing this because you owe it to yourself to become everything you were built to be. Let your results introduce you. Let your transformation do the talking. Let your actions speak such volume that silence becomes your signature. Most people get addicted to noise because silence feels uncomfortable. It forces them to sit with their reality, their pain, their truth. But when you push through that discomfort, you discover clarity. You begin to hear your intuition louder than ever before. You start to connect the dots between who you were and who you're becoming. You understand your patterns, your fears, your triggers, and you begin to rewrite the script. To have pain, that kind of self-awareness doesn't come from endless talking. It comes from intentional listening, from looking in the mirror and being honest about what needs to change. That's the kind of growth that can't be rushed and can't be broadcast. Silence gives you control. You no longer react to every opinion. You no longer feel the need to justify your choices. You move with purpose, not with panic. You decide who gets access to you, who gets your energy, who gets your time. And in doing so, you create a life that reflects your values, not the noise of the crowd. That's the reward of staying focused on yourself. You start living on your terms in the quiet, your identity strengthens. You stop being a version of yourself shaped by others. You start creating a version of yourself defined by discipline, purpose, and self-trust. You don't need to impress anyone. You don't need to keep up with anyone. You just need to keep showing up for yourself over and over until your reality mirrors your potential. When you focus on yourself, you begin to realize how much of your life was spent reacting to expectations, to pressure, to criticism. You were chasing peace in people and achievements in external rewards. But the moment you pulled back, the moment you choose solitude, you found the peace was always within you. You just needed silence to hear it. That's the gift silence gives you. It reconnects you with your essence. It strips away the noise, the masks. It brings you face to face with your truth. And from that place, you rebuild. Not from a build, from alignment. Not for attention, but for freedom. Everything changes when you stop explaining and start executing. When you stop performing and start practicing. When you stop being visible and start being valuable to yourself. That's what focusing on yourself is really about. Reclaiming your power, reclaiming your voice, not to speak louder, but to speak with more meaning when the time comes. You're not falling behind. You're just choosing a different path, a quieter path, a deeper path, one that doesn't demand a spotlight, only your full presence. And in the end, it's not how loud you were. It's about how far you grew in silence. The seed you planted when no one was watching. The discipline you built when no one was clapping. The person you became when you finally decided that your energy belonged to your purpose, not to the noise around you.
When you finally begin to focus on yourself, you start to notice how much of your energy was spent on things that never really mattered. You see clearly how often you bent your identity to fit into rooms where you were never truly seen. You remember all the times you over-explained your dreams to people who didn't have the capacity to understand them. And that's the turning point. Not when you get louder, but when you get quieter. Not when you fight harder for validation, but when you walk away from the need to be understood. That shift is the birth of real power. Because when you stop scattering your energy outward, you begin collecting it inward. And with that energy, you build. You grow. You transform. There is something sacred about moving in silence. Not because you're hiding, but because you've learned that the most important parts of your evolution don't need to be seen to be real. Growth is not always loud. Success is not always public. Healing is not always announced. Sometimes the most powerful changes happen quietly, when nobody's watching. When you're alone with your habits, your discipline, your discomfort. That's where self-mastery is built. That's where resilience is shaped. That's where real identity is forged. Not in moments of applause, but in moments of solitude where you chose yourself again and again, even when it was hard. The more you focus on yourself, the less reactive you become. Of self, you stop getting triggered by people's opinions because you understand that their words don't define your truth. You stop trying to fit into conversations that drain your energy because silence now feels more powerful than arguing. You stop chasing people who don't respect your boundaries because your peace has become non-negotiable. That kind of clarity only comes when you make a decision to stop giving your power away. When you stop responding to every insult, every distraction, every little thing that tries to knock you off track. Focusing on yourself teaches you to conserve your energy for what truly matters in silence. You begin to reconnect with your own voice. Not the voice you use to impress, but the one that knows who you are even when no one is listening. That voice gets louder the longer you sit with it. It starts guiding you away from chaos and back toward purpose. It starts pulling you away from approval and into alignment. It reminds you that not everyone is supposed to understand your journey, and that's okay. The mission isn't to be understood, it's to be fulfilled, and that requires focus. That requires eliminating what doesn't support your direction. That requires a ruthless commitment to your inner world. Every time you sit in silence, instead of defending yourself, you strengthen your self-control. Every time you choose presence over performance, you develop your inner authority. And every time you make space for stillness, you invite wisdom in. Because clarity doesn't come from constant movement. It comes from stillness. You can't hear your next move if you're always drowning in noise. The people who grow the most are not the ones who talk about it. They're the ones who live it, day by day, behind the scenes, away from applause, without recognition, but with full intention. People might assume your silence is weakness. But what they don't see is the transformation taking place beneath the surface. They don't see the hours you put into yourself, the boundaries you're learning to set, the healing you're doing behind closed doors. They don't realize you're not avoiding the world. You're preparing to return to it as someone more powerful, more aligned, more capable than ever before. That's the strength of focus. That's the gift of silence. You're not just retreating. You're regenerating. You're not just stepping back. You're stepping up in a way they won't understand until the results speak for themselves. Focusing on yourself means taking accountability for your own growth. It means no longer blaming the world for your limits. It means owning your healing, your habits, your decisions. It means recognizing that your peace, your energy, your mindset, they are your responsibility, unto self, and you can't protect what you're not paying attention to. That's why silence becomes so valuable. It eliminates the external noise so you can actually hear what's happening inside. It gives you space to reflect, to plan, to recalibrate. It sharpens your awareness. It trains your focus. It reveals the places where you've been leaking time and attention into things that were never aligned with your future. And when you learn to love your own company, everything changes. You stop settling for half-hearted connections. You stop needing to prove your worth. You stop feeling empty when you're alone because you finally filled the space within yourself. That's what makes you unstoppable. Not the noise you make, but the foundation you build when no one's watching. That quiet discipline, that silent progress, that invisible work. It adds up, it compounds, it elevates you. And when you re-enter the world, you do it from a place of wholeness, not hunger. You don't show up to impress. You show up to lead. You don't move for attention. You move with intention. The moment you begin to prioritize yourself, something inside you shifts. You begin to reclaim the time, energy, and attention you used to give away so easily. You start to see that not everything deserves a reaction. Not every opinion matters. Not every invitation is meant to be accepted. When you focus on yourself and stay silent, you step into a place of personal power that no one can give you and no one can take away. You begin to protect your peace like it's sacred, because it is. You begin to observe more and speak less, not because you don't have anything to say, but because you understand silence is sometimes the loudest response you can give. You learn that you don't have to respond to every criticism. You don't have to defend your every move. You don't have to correct every misunderstanding. Because once you've developed a strong sense of self, you stop needing to be understood by people who are committed to misunderstanding you. You stop wasting your breath explaining your journey to those who haven't walked your path. The truth is, when you know who you are, you don't chase validation. You don't need applause. You don't seek permission. You simply move, quietly and intentionally, in the direction of your growth. Staying silent doesn't mean staying still. It means you're moving in a way that doesn't require constant announcement. It means you're allowing your results to speak for you. It means you're operating from a place of clarity and control rather than emotion and noise. You're building in the dark, trusting that the light will find you when the time is right. That's the discipline most people lack. They want to be seen before they've done the work. They want to be celebrated before they've sacrificed. But you're different. You've learned to love the quiet. You've learned that the absence of noise is not the absence of progress. In fact, it's the most fertile ground for growth. When you focus inward, you start to notice what truly fulfills you and what simply distracts you. You stop chasing surface-level satisfaction. You start investing in depth, in meaning, in real transformation. The world is noisy, chaotic, demanding your attention at every turn. But when you choose to focus on yourself, you create space for your own voice to rise above the noise. You stop being pulled in every direction. You stop being available for everything and everyone. You become intentional with your time, with your energy, with your relationships. That intention becomes your filter. That silence becomes your sanctuary,